First up, we have one of the best players in the Asia Pacific region. It's tom60229. And next up, making his first HCT performance, quite the success already. Give it up for Orange.
Orange versus tom60229.
Tom has been there racking up tournament win after tournament win and just really has never stopped performing.
Orange
is very consistent. He is a player who rarely makes any mistakes.
Not talked as much with him because we're from different regions, but definitely a real threat.
Orange versus tom60229. Ready, set, go!
All the players here have a huge amount of respect for each other, and rightly so, but what's going to happen in the match? We can talk about deck lists. We've talked about lineups quite a lot already today, as they are so important to any given tournament. We can see the decks that everyone has brought here. Orange bringing the Hunter, I think, is the real standout point for him in this tournament.
It is, yeah. I mean, a few people have brought a unique fourth deck. Admirable was talking about this in the intro. For Orange, it's Hunter. And the stats that we have been provided by HS Replay show that Hunter is pretty weak in this series. Only has that one favorable matchup working for it. But Orange feels comfortable with it. And speaking of comfort, I asked him right before we came up, hey, are you looking forward to playing some Priest this tournament now that you're probably going to see some Warlock bans? And he just looked at me, smiled, and nodded, because he calls this deck home. He has probably played more games with this deck than just about anyone else out there. He thinks he has all the interactions, all the matchups down to a T.
Yeah, I remember very early on after the expansion, everyone went to Raza Priest, and he was saying like, yeah, I'm just going to sit and learn this deck. And when Orange says something like that, he will sit and play hundreds and hundreds of games with that deck. He doesn't mess about. And speaking of Raza, kicking it off in the opening hand there for Orange. So I would say a very strong step one on the checkbox done.
Yeah, and I love the point you made about him. You know, if he says he's going to grind out a deck, he will do it. I think that is what Orange does. He is a processing machine that turns data into solid play. I was talking in the intro about naturally talented players. I don't think Orange is one of those naturally talented players. I think he's a hard worker. I think he's someone who grinds out matchups. And I think when he understands decks, he plays them as well as anyone. But it can take him a little more time to get to that point.
Yeah, I agree. And he agrees, actually. It's a sentiment he shared when we were talking to him before we got things started. Tom, on the other hand, I did speak to him literally just before he walked on stage. Sorry for just punching you there.
Arm a little bit.
Yeah, well, just emphasize the point to us. And I said, how are you feeling? Because it's all good and well asking them yesterday, asking them a couple of days before. How are you feeling minutes before you're about to start this match? Tom was like, yeah, really good. I slept really well, slept for 9 hours last night, feeling fresh. And Tom's a very experienced player, and feeling fresh and feeling confident on this kind of stage on top of that.
Yeah, he rolled back on his confidence a little bit when we spoke to him at this event from the previous championship. I would swear in a court of law that when we interviewed him last time, he said he was the best player in the APAC region and no one else was close. When we asked him about that too, he said, no, I never said that. I think I'm one of the best players, but there's a lot of good players in the region. I don't know, dude.
Did you just lie to us, Tom?
One of them was a lie.
But let's look at the game as it's progressing. As I mentioned earlier, Raza was in the opening hand, so that's a great first step for Orange. The rest of his hand, not so amazing for the early game. So is having Raza enough to discount that kind of difference in hand?
I mean, Raza's a huge card in the matchup for sure, but it's not quite a matchup where you can just Raza 5 Anduin 8 and just walk away with the game. You do need to interact a couple of times in the middle of that. And Tom does have a very oppressive opening here. He's pushing a lot of damage with South Sea Captain, and he's denying card draw whilst doing it, which is a huge 1-2 punch to the Priest's chances of winning. Orange does have Circle of Healing in hand, though, which means he is an Orkanai draw away from a huge blowout turn of his own.
Yeah, and that silence was quite the pickup there from the Swashbuckler, because Rogue often can't deny card draw from Priest that well. They have Vilespine if you want to Vilespine and Acolyte, or, you know, similar cards. But really, you kind of just have to try and race them and do strong setups into turns like turn 8 where Anduin can come down. But Tom having the silence there was huge. You know, one less card draw for Priest. It is so impactful, it's kind of ridiculous.
This Southsea deckhand now creates a pretty interesting dilemma for Tom this turn. He can dagger up and charge out that deckhand as a 3-2, trade through the Tar Creeper quite nicely and push some damage. Or he can choose to go with the Southsea captain and take a value trade with his then 4-4 captain already in play. I think I like the deckhand line a little bit more. Getting a dagger up and stretching out your resources in this matchup is actually quite effective a lot of the time. It's actually, again, something we were talking with Orange with just before this matchup started. You can play this matchup quite a bit slower than you might expect as the Rogue.
Yeah, he did end up going for the captain, though, and that also surprised me a little bit with seeing Thanos gone, because if you leaving up the 2 health or 1 health minions can be a bit annoying with, say, you know, Thanos into Spirit Lash. Thanos is gone, right? So that isn't really as much of a threat. I thought he was going to go for the deckhand there and hold off, but at the end of the day, having 2 4/4s on the board, if he was going for the captain, these trades were great. Just get away with the little minions and have 2 strong 4/4s on the board that are only going to get stronger going forward into the next few turns.
Yeah, I was going to lead forward to this point, which is if you do go with the captain line, I actually do like leaving this board state, because you're so much more resilient. You're only vulnerable to Orkanai Circle pretty much at this point in the game. Whereas if you'd value traded with the captain, you open yourself up more to Spirit Lash, you open yourself up more to Potion of Madness, being able to take care of your biggest threat on board, and so on. So yeah, the 2 4/4s in play, obviously. It's a meme at this point, we know that, but it's a nightmare for Priest to deal with.
Really is now a third 4-attack minion on the board due to these captains, but this is shaping up to be quite a nice hand here from Tom, because he now has the Flame Elemental in hand as an activator for Vilespine later on, regardless of whatever he draws, right? He could draw a backstab, so that helps. But then also has the flexibility to say, oh, I don't need to Vilespine this turn. Okay, Scalebane. Oh, he killed the Scalebane. Another Scalebane. You know, these are very resilient cards versus Priest, and almost the reason why Scalebane's as popular as it is because it beats Dragonfire from Priest.
Absolutely.
Speaking of Dragonfire, in that.
Sorry, what was that noise?
So you never heard that draw Dragonfire noise before?
No.
It's pretty reasonable since it's the first time I've said it.
You could definitely convince me that the game client itself made that noise.
Yeah, you play on mute. You miss out on so much of the joy of the Hearthstone sound effects.
Orange has no real choice here. He's staring down 14 power on the board. Any source of damage would have killed him at this point, but he has to just continue developing the Raza here. He has no other options, and now the Scalebane being available to counterpunch the Dragonfire Potion is a huge win for tom60229, and as you said, can follow this up with plenty more threats in the future.
Yeah, do you think you ever trade away the 1/2 to dodge any sort of Pyro Potion of Madness shenanigans? Because Tom can easily afford to take 5 here. This isn't really a problem.
Okay, he can, because he is a mile ahead in the matchup right now. But actually, taking 5 when you're at 30 in this matchup is often not a good idea, because quite a lot of the time, the Priest does just try and race you.
And that's what I mean. He can afford to take it, but having a trade that also plays around another awkward play your opponent can make ticks all the boxes in my book.
Absolutely agree with not taking the 5 in that position for a multitude of reasons.
Now, this is the exact reason Scalebane's a good card.
Yep.
The clear here is the Dragonfire Potion, or would be if Scalebane was not, in fact, a dragon and immune to the effect. So Orange under pressure from every which way here, and to be honest, the Dragonfire is going to have to come down, I think, and you could say, oh, you know, he's on 10, he's got an extra 5 health to kind of deal with, well, 4 without the dagger included. That's not a lot of damage to ask for Rogue to do. Not going to be this turn, though. We're going to see the Scalebane high 5.
The Scalebane high 5. It's a good question. I mean, it's as perfect a time for it as you're ever going to get. You want to get this threat on board before Shadow Reaper Anduin can come down, because that's when cards like Scalebane and Bone Mare can become a liability, when Shadow Reaper Anduin are available.
Okay. Aren't a lot of great Valspine targets in this matchup. So Valspine's normally one you're okay with kind of just throwing away. You know, I mentioned earlier, like an Acolyte if you can. That's a great target. But there aren't really any big minions. The biggest minions are Velen, for example, but when Velen comes down, you normally die that turn. Raza again, but Raza was dealt with very effectively anyway on board, so Tom not going for the Scalebane High Five is instead drops down the Valspine and just goes a little bit wider on the board. Orange taking the average Hearthstone player's pose of hand on head. What do I do now?
The answer is not a great deal. There is no line available to prevent lethal damage coming back from tom60229, and I talked coming into this about how comfortable Orange was with Priest. The data shows us, you know, ladder data shows us that that is a favored matchup for the Priest quite heavily. But actually, the top Rogue players will tell you that matchup is just fine from the Rogue perspective. And I think you saw there one of the draws, one of the pan-outs, as Admirable likes to say, that can actually tip it in Rogue's favor. Yeah,
it's definitely one of the close matchups. That is going to be game one with Tom taking it. And Tom, one of the most successful HCT, has had one of the most successful HCT seasons of anyone playing the game at the moment. But he does want to try and erase the memories of the last trip to the World Championship. Getting to this point, it would only be heartbreak to not make it all the way. Tom has already been through that. He does not want to repeat that scenario again.
Yeah, not just the previous World Championship performance. Tom is a last call qualifier for this event as well. When you say you've put a lot into it, the last call qualifier is probably more than anyone. Yeah. Because when you qualify through a seasonal championship, you can actually just take a break, you know, low-key relax for the rest of the year if you qualify early. We talked with a lot of players about the merits of that. If you got there through last call, you have been on it every single day for the entire season to grind out those points.
Yep, definitely hard workers, all of them. And let's kick off game number 2. And this is probably a highlight of this tournament. We see Warlock for a start. Warlock is not going to be banned out here. And then we see Orange's Hunter, the only player to bring Hunter. And we were talking to him just a little bit before backstage, and he was sort of in a good mood about it. He was half laughing and saying, oh, you know, it's kind of funny that I'm the only one who brought Hunter, but I actually think, judging from what I've seen, Hunter could be the deck that gets me there. And then what a great story that would be.
Yeah, he said that he feels like his group perhaps has a little bit of a weakness to Hunter. He said that his own words, not mine, him being the idiot that brought Hunter to this tournament could actually work in his favor. And this is the matchup that he wanted, as I said. The HS replay stats bear out that this is the matchup he needs to win with his Hunter if he's going to get over the line against tom60229.
Yeah, and on the other side of the board here, Tom on the cube variant of the Warlock, not the control one. This list I have a good amount of experience with. This is actually one of my favorite lists of the current meta, especially with the Giants as well. Gives you a lot of power versus Priest. And yeah, we'll see if it gets there, because one of the things it does struggle with is the defense against extreme aggression. Yep. Because Rogue, you know, against Rogue you can kind of deal with it, set up a good defile board or clear the board once, then Rogue can run out of juice. Like Hunter often just gets there before you can even set up a defile or a good Hellfire. They just go that little one step too fast, I would say.
Yeah, Mountain Giant in this matchup, he might as well have not drawn a card in his mulligan there, because that Mountain Giant is not being played. As fantastic as it is in the mirrors and the Priest matchup and all these great source of 8 damage in these crucial control matchups, you're just almost never going to have enough cards in hand to play that against Hunter, because you are going to be forced to play out your resources very, very quickly to contest with their aggression.
Orange now with a couple of options. There is the coin into the bow to get it live, but he still just has 2 1-drops if he wants to go a little bit wide on the board. He will always be considering Defile, but again, if he hits a Defile this early, it's probably not the end of the world. And also, Tom's list isn't playing, because it's the Q block, isn't playing Siphoned Soul, isn't playing Twisted Nether. This Hydra, very difficult to deal with. Often, it's a very early Spellstone that's been buffed by Librarians, for example, that get you there. Do that 7 damage, you need 1 more from, you know, Mortal Coil, a minion, whatever. But this Hydra is actually a huge pain to deal with for this Warlock.
And you saw Orange keep that in the mulligan, which, you know, globally, Hydra is a very mediocre card in terms of win rate in Hunter, and a lot of matchups you really need to be going for that Candle Shot or the Beast into Razormaw curve. It's about a 50% win rate card, I believe, like globally. But in this particular matchup, as you said, there is just no way to answer it on curve. If you play that thing on 5, or even better, if you're going second, jam it out on the coin, it's going to get in there for 8 a lot of the time.
Very, very difficult. A lot of Warlock setups start on 6.
Yeah.
Even the weapon on 5, well, guess what? Nothing's happening other than you equipping a weapon on 5. You still get hit for 8. We are going to see what happens quite often with Prince Tal'Darim here, where you just have to just play it as a 3-3 just to fight the board. This often occurs as well against Paladin, where you try and get a Wretch Protector. So at least it's a 3-3 with Divine Shield, right? Just to try and stem the flow of damage, but now there's just weapon into coin into Hydra. I'm guessing, you know, as you mentioned, is Orange's rough game plan for what his hand tells him to do. Now there's a Spellbreaker, so that even if a Void Lord, as we can see one in Tom's hand, comes out, you just go, nope. Slide straight past it.
Yeah, just bow and keep on trucking. I don't see what is wrong with this line whatsoever. He has, you know, enough repetitive damage on the board to be irritating, and this amount of pressure is just about to be amplified by an order of magnitude when this Hydra hits the board.
Just it's okay, you can create new words. It's fine. Amplitude.
Amplitude? It's a rhythm game, I think.
Here comes the Hydra. Now Tom has second Void Lord.
I was going to say, snap Faceless. He has to do it. Needs to contest it. He cannot take 8 and then just have no answer to it again. Ooh. He can survive the 8. He cannot survive 16 from this Hydra. He will be in way too much of a position to just get bursted down by hero powers and kill commands at that point.
It's a tricky turn in itself, actually. Flanking shot. Orange is playing the 1-up in the deck. And it was one of the questions that was raised, like, oh, like, no one's really tried flanking shot in an aggressive hunter, at least. Everyone kind of went to the spell hunter early on just to test it out. Flanking shot, great card there. But now I wonder.
Sorry, you've said it one too many times. It's strike. I was going to let you go away with it.
Oh, strike. Yeah. I've literally got the card name in front of me. I just ignored it.
I was going to let it slide for a while, and you just kept going back to the well.
Flanking man.
Yeah, there you go.
I wonder if you just go for it on the Hydra here. You kind of still get 3 damage to Tom. You create a 3-3. You do skip a hero power, though, which hurts.
I think you kill command it and hit it with the bow. Yeah.
Oh, he's going to take the... Okay, yeah, okay.
Because you push 6 more then by killing this Hydra, and you still have an 8-8 on the board. And what did I say earlier? Like, Tom can afford to tank this once, but he needs that 8-8 as an answer to it the second time around.
And Orange can afford to tank this a million times, right? Because his health is completely insignificant in this game.
You say that?
Well, unless there's a crazy Defile.
That Defile could have made things interesting in a slightly different board position.
Yeah, if he'd gone for, say, the flanking shot.
Say if there was a 3-3 Wolf on the board right now.
That just goes 1, 2, 3, 4. Wow.
Jumps out the 4-door with the 4-4 and goes 1, 2, 3, and 4.
Counting with the casters. I mean, that's pretty much what Defile is, guys. So there's the Librarian into the Spellstone. For those who don't know, the Librarian just activate the Spellstone if it's drawn that turn. He did get some extra damage there, some extra healing. But that's still 8 damage from the Hydra this turn. Oh.
2 out of 3.
We all know what we're looking for right now. Oh! Lost the 2 out of 3. One of the few times where you're happy to see Leok. Does this get really scary now?
Yes. In a word, Raven, yes.
The Librarian's not enough though, right? The whiff draws too much.
Tom Defiles, he clears the board, the Mistress heals him up. In the meantime, he's done 9 through the Hydra damage to Orange. And yeah, he's just going to be forced to play it out.
Librarian, yeah.
Orange on a draw again.
The problem here is Tom just, no matter what happens this turn on Orange's side, he has to draw Dark Pact. But then what is he Dark Pacting? Like, you know, you look at the slightly long-term plan, Faceless manipulated Dark Pact. It's not going to get him there. Tom knows it, and Orange evens this up with the Hunter. 1 game, 1 win, 100% win rate Hunter. in this tournament.
Can't argue with that, but I think you have to rewind to that crucial turn where kill commanding and sinking damage into that Hydra to leave his own Hydra uncontested on the board. That could have very much been the difference, although that whiff on the Animal Companion did give Tom a brief window of hope that the Hunter does pick up a much-needed win for Orange.
Yeah, there's a glimmer of hope there, but Orange taking this win and taking a bit of a drink of water, good to stay hydrated. But let's find out a little bit more about Orange.
Well met.
He's won a seat story, you know, 2 of the biggest tournaments outside of the HCT circuit. Why haven't we seen him over and over again in these events? And something Purple said really resonated with me was that Orange is a genius when he knows all the cards in your deck.
Yeah.
In open, revealed deck list formats. But he's not great at playing ladder because he outthinks himself. He plays around cards that aren't there. He assumes people have teched their decks in ways that they haven't. So suddenly, now that he's got to this stage, he's got through the hard part for him, which is getting enough ladder points to get here in the first place. Now he can see 30 cards versus 30 cards. I made this point earlier. He can just absorb that data and output solid play.
Yeah, and game number 3, Orange giving another whirl with the Priest, and Tom giving it a whirl with the Warlock again. So this is a matchup. If you play a bit of ladder and you play one of these decks, you've probably run into a couple of times, I'm going to say. Yeah, just once or twice. It's a very cool matchup, though. I know a lot of the pro players almost around the world actually tested a ton of matchups in terms of, you know, we will play 20 games today of this matchup. We'll see what wins. And I still don't think a true consensus has been reached. I think it's very, very close.
Yeah, and the statistics bear that out. It's shown to be a very even matchup via our data tracking as well, which Tom has specifically chosen to bring Cube Warlock. We asked him about this. You know, some people have brought Control Warlock, some people have brought Cube. Why have you come down on the Cube side of that argument? He said, well, it's because I'm leaving Priest up, and I think this build has a much better chance against Raza Priest than a classical Control Warlock. And say what you will about this matchup, where you come down on it, it certainly is better than Control Warlock in this matchup.
Oh, yeah, 100%. Especially the Giants, right?
Yeah.
You have Giants you can mulligan for. I'm a tiny bit surprised at the Gul'dan mulligan from Tom. He did end up throwing it away. Normally, that's what Gul'dan does in this matchup is say, you can just get Doom Guards, get everything out and go like face, make as many Doom Guards as possible and just not really care if he Anduins, you know what I mean, or Dragonfires or clears the board, because you're like, well, on turn 10 I press this and then I get 4 or 5 Doom Guards on the board and that's just going to be game. But Tom did go for a pretty hard mulligan, throw everything away, and going for the Giants, and turn 4 Giant, turn 5 Giant is very, very strong versus Priest. And also, if those live, he has Faceless Manipulators on top of that to just keep making 8/8s. Often as well, Cube into Dark Pact on a Giant. Priest can deal with one of them. It's normally it, to be completely honest, unless there's a cheeky potion that has the polymorph effect to deal with a second.
He was offered the Poly as his first choice, which definitely would have been appealing, knowing, as we were talking about, these are open deck lists. Orange is very good in this format. There it is. Polymorph and draw 2. Look at this. That is the juice right there. That is what you want in this situation.
Yeah, he's going to leave Kazak as a tip for that one, I think. I think it was like, yes, great service. There you go. It's a great answer to the Giant, but as we said, normally there's only, outside of Anduin later on, of course, the Shadow of Death, right?
Yes.
But having this done now, Orange didn't have Death in hand anyway, so that would have been a problem. But just getting rid of the 1 is absolutely huge. Just buys him that tiny bit more of time to be able to get on top of this matchup.
And it's compounded by the fact that Tom has double Faceless Manipulator in his hand. This is a holdout from the old handlock days when you used to play Faceless Manipulator as part of a Leroy combo. But some matchups,
you get them with Giants.
You just copy your big threats, copy your Giants. And if a Giant sticks to the board, a lot of the time you would rather use a Faceless than your other Giant.
Yeah.
Because your other Giant is always another Giant. Your Faceless only has the opportunity to be that now. And that's what Orange took away from him with that Polymorph Potion, at least from his perspective. But then he probably would have been slightly perturbed to see Giant number 2 immediately follow.
Yeah, this gets scary again now. It's like, oh, that potion was so sick. You know, Polymorph, draw cards. Oh, he has another one. Great. I'll check Orange's list here.
What is Elun's will?
Yeah, he isn't wearing Master Spell. So I was just thinking, a lot of the time it's difficult to rely on a cube that you've left on the board and not Dark Pacted. to go off, because Silence comes down, Mass Dispel, for example, comes down, and well, a lot of your strategy's ruined then at that point. But with one less Silence in the deck, might be a little bit more open for Tom to work with here. Faceless does seem good though. He could go for the trade, and then just cube and then Dark Pact it to just get 2 more Giants on the board. That's why I love this deck. There's a million options.
Yep.
All the time. It looks like he's going to go for the cube. Doesn't need to use the Faceless. This one utilizes the cube, which can be hard to do sometimes. And 2, also heals himself back up. It's not like he's going to die next turn, but why not take the heal while you can, right?
Orange did have the opportunity last turn to bypass his Raza, which is always a bad feeling. When you're weighing up the pros and cons of any given play, I didn't play Raza this turn is always quite heavily in the cons column. But he could have dealt with that giant threat just with the Dragonfire Potion, trading in a 3-3 Dragonfire Potion away the 8-8. That then suddenly takes away those Faceless Manipulator plays, the cube plays, all those kind of availabilities. Something that might be worth going back to look at.
I agree. This is definitely one of the ways you win versus Priest, is the Warlock is just saying, well, you dealt with 1, and that was, fortunate from the Kazakus that, gave him the Polymorph option. But can you deal with 2? Can you deal with 3? It can be 4 next turn if Tom wants to keep this pressure up with the Giants, and why not at this point? The Star Creeper comes down, he's going to be, mainly a speed bump at this point. Nothing even that bad for Tom to get through.
Orange is going to load out. So with the Acolyte of Pain and the Nausea Cleric on the board, he gives himself the potential to hit something with an Acolyte and potentially 0 mana hero power to heal a minion, and then pick up a draw off the Cleric, which gives him 3 possible draws for Shadow Reaper Anduin at this point, making his chances 19% to pick up the card that he needs to swing this matchup back.
Tom did go for the tap there. I think that was mainly to see if he could fish for a demon, because then the skull, the weapon, becomes way more powerful to equip now while you're relatively safe. And then you can actually say you get, any of the 2 demons actually. There are still those 2 Faceless that Tom's had sitting in hand for a while now and probably wants to utilize. And when the weapon is actually just kicking out demons every turn, you just Faceless them with your mana, then perfect. But end up getting the Librarian instead. Now Tom has to make the call. Sometimes you actually do have to just equip the weapon and say, well, I know he's not going to summon anything next turn, but maybe the turn after. But instead, Tom's saying, I like 8/8s. I'm going to keep playing these. These are good.
The big boy plays.
Yeah.
Straight into the Anduin turn, makes a 3rd 8/8, doesn't give a single
cheese.
Anduin isn't there. I was done. I don't know why you felt the need to follow that up.
I just like saying cheese.
Fair enough.
What is Elun's will?
Spirit Lash there, doing the big 1 damage to these Giants. Most importantly, getting the card draw for Orange, though.
Yeah, does give himself the ability now to go off with Dragonfire plus the trades to take care of this incredibly threatening board.
So Orange is starting to piece together a good amount of damage here. The Smite, the Velen, and of course the Mind Blast are all key pieces of the may as well be unlimited damage combo. It feels like often when you're against Priest, but he still is missing the Shadow Reaper Anduin. Very nice clear there though, all the Giants gone. Nice clap from the audience, good job guys.
Nothing better than a Hearthstone audience appreciating clean playing.
Yeah. There's a demon now, so this weapon, Skull of Manari?
Mm-hmm.
I never know how you say that. Manari? Because of the...
Right.
You're thinking about Bob?
Yeah. Hearthstone doesn't really understand how apostrophes work.
Yasharaj.
Yasharaj. What is that?
A name.
Okay. Tom now exhausted a lot of his threats. Okay, I was about to say, let's not forget he's already used one of his cubes, which is a big win condition in this matchup at this point. Does pick up the second one. If that was buried deep in the bottom of his deck, he might be in a rough position.
Yeah, yes and no as well, though, because if you get a Doomguard out, you have the benefit of Doomguard coming out on your turn, and he still has a Prince and Faceless. So
That's
he can
true.
create 3 Doomguards.
Yeah, no, that's
It doesn't
fair.
really matter that one's a 3/3, right?
That's
because they just die, you do damage, and then guess what? He has Gold Death in hand, go. Right. So there is still options. It's not all reliant on the cubes.
But how much time does he have to make that happen is the question.
Not a lot now.
Right.
You normally want this to be Doomguard literally your next draw.
Still no Anduin for Orange just yet, though.
Tom in, like, Zen mode, I think. It's like full focus, just look down. I think eyes closed. Probably want to watch what Orange is doing. It might be relevant. But sometimes you just need a minute.
This one will prove very useful.
Oh, I love the weapons that talk in this game. They're so good. Void Lord's down now, so it's going to make some of the kind of weird minion pressure that Priest does sometimes, like Glimmer Roots early on is like, I'm kind of getting beat up, but kind of not.
Sure.
It kind of makes the minions to a certain level insignificant. Obviously, the Priest of the Feast is very important because it can keep healing. But the Void Lord, kind of awkward for Priest to get through without a silence.
I would be tempted to call Void Lords almost a non-factor in this matchup, though. Priest will kill you over the top. It doesn't really matter if you're Void Lords.
It's more of a factor that you got a free demon, right?
Sure.
Like a free minion to just start punching things with.
Right. If anything, you know, if you pollute your pool with too many Void Lords and by extension too many Void Walkers, that then gives you low rolls off your Gul'dan later on.
Sometimes, well, a lot of the time, you're very happy that this Void Lord, if it receives a silence.
Yes.
You're like, yes, please.
Which again, then from the Priest side, you should try your very hardest not to be silencing a Void Lord in this matchup. That is not a good play from the Priest side.
Only the other day, I Gul'daned into 7 Void Walkers. It was a dark moment. Lyra. A lot of discussion between Lyra and Gadgetzan that I feel has never ended. No one's decided.
Orange was very much on the Auctioneer train last time we saw him
That's
at
what I mean.
Summer Championships, yeah.
It's like, yeah, Auctioneer's just clearly the best. Me and Purple think so. And I'm like, well, yeah, I trust you guys.
Yeah,
Next minute, Lyra.
Right, it's kind of meta dependent on what you're trying to target though, because Auctioneer is like a little bit too slow if you're expecting quick decks to kind of come back at you and beat you up. Lyra can get you out of jams a little bit quicker. Lyra also has the possibility of making magic happen. It can do things that shouldn't be possible. Auctioneer can draw your deck, which in a lot of situations a card from your deck is better than a random card. Sometimes you need something that your deck is not going to provide for you, and that's when Lyra comes into play.
Mind Game's been one of them. Definitely cards that can make a matchup go very wonky, and Tom might just have to go for Dark Pact here. Onto the Lackey. I think he needs a Doomguard of some extent. He needs something to happen. Still has a Void Lord in the deck, so he could whiff effectively and get the Void Lord. But at least if he goes Lackey pull now, he can, like I mentioned earlier, like just Prince of Doomguard. So then there's 2 in the pool. And he can actually trade them away to get a guaranteed kill. Because sometimes it can get a little bit awkward if you create a lot of Doomguards, then Scream comes down, and they're put back in the deck. And then it gets hard to pull them out of the deck to die or kill your opponent, then Gul'dan brings them back. He's going to have to go for it. This, though, with the tap, removes the ability to get the Prince down.
He's going to go.
Oh, it's Defiling. Oh, okay, sure.
Yeah.
This is actually just way better because it leaves it flexible with the cube into Dark Pact, which is the main way you want to use it. Second Void Lord.
The low roll.
Bit of a shake-off there from Tom, just like, okay, there are only 2 demons left. And only 6 cards left. This is not what you want in this matchup. Especially after such an explosive start with those giants. I mean, Orange is still on 30. Like, this is kind of weird. You don't actually often see this.
I did just glance over at the list because Muzzy has brought Q-Block with no Doomguards to this tournament. He calls it Void Lord the deck. Yeah, I just had a quick glance over just to check we hadn't completely missed over the course of over a week that Tom also did not have Doomguards.
Something like some kind of autobiography. Void Lord, my life.
Life in a trench coat.
Howard Shield being used to cycle again, as you said, the Void Lord relatively insignificant,
not relevant,
so you can just buff it just doesn't matter.
Especially when you have a 6-mana selector minion, as Admirable likes to call it. But in this situation,
very important,
very powerful option.
A swing and a miss again for this draw from Tom. No Doomguard. It's progressively getting worse. I know this is stating the obvious here, but every single turn that's missed is an increasingly amount of problems. It's not just the same amount of increase. There we go, there's one. We got a Doomguard at last, everyone. And now Tom can start doing very silly things. Huh.
It's absolutely necessary. How are you ever Doomguarding your opponent in the face if you do not prevent him from gaining control of that Void Lord?
It still hurts.
It does. It's
Still
very
hurts.
painful.
Because now you can't do fun things. Or adds fun things, should I say.
Especially with both Defiles gone for Tom already as well, which is your other easy activator for cubes and things later on.
It would be so sick as well. When you have, you know, if you had a Defile left, you can do stupid things with Cube, Tarim, Defile on certain boards. This does limit the options here, but as you said, if Tom isn't hitting through 1,000 health worth of taunt minions at this point.
Oh yes.
Ooh.
They'll serve me now.
Dark Pact your lackey, that's a good play, right?
It is doable. I don't think it pulls a demon though.
It doesn't. Feels bad.
Imagine if the lackey was just like attached to the deck it came from. Just pull one of the Doomguards out of Tom's deck. You'd be like, wait, what? It shouldn't work like this.
And this is cute. Orange deliberately Dark Packs the larger 3/3 away to prevent these 1/3s being able to be traded off the board, congesting the board space with 1/3s that are not threatening to kill him.
Hellfire's a really good card. Actually slots in very nicely. And suddenly, this is when you get to the point in this matchup where you aren't that afraid of Anduin. On the turn he comes down. Obviously, if you don't...
Oh, you're very scared of Anduin because you die if he draws Anduin. You know that there is damage in his hand to kill you at this point.
Yeah, I mean, like, you have that Anduin turn where you can blow up and then you can go down and go.
You have to kill him on
That's
the
what I'm saying, yeah, that's what I'm saying.
This, the play from Orange was kind of important on a number of levels, though. Like, firstly, the 1/3s weren't threatening to kill him, as I said, but also the board state was so congested that Orange had calculated Skull of the Minari was going to pull a Doomguard, which would then fill the board, and Tom would have to do something weird to then be able to faceless or cube a Doomguard, because there would not be board space under normal circumstances. Tom made that happen, does find himself the faceless setup, and now Orange is staring down potential lethal coming back the other way.
Matchup on a knife edge. We talked a lot about Orange just, you know, taking his time to get to the Doomguards. There is a card missing from Orange's hand that he has also not drawn. That is very, very important in this matchup and in this deck as a whole. The Anduin is not there. And Orange doesn't really have a way to make that happen sooner. There's no draw.
I wonder.
It's all just answers and answers to questions that Tom's not even particularly asking at this point.
It's very, very existential there for a moment, Raven.
Sometimes you gotta go there. Orange, I believe, didn't have that much sleep last night. Said he was feeling okay.
Yeah, around 4 hours.
Yeah,
I
it's
believe,
not a
is
lot
what
of
he
rest,
said.
is it? Not to play some of the most important Hearthstone of your life.
Right.
If you've watched any like 24-hour streams or anything like that, you will quite notice the difference between the level of play at the start of a stream till late.
That's game. 10 damage on board, 2 Hellfires. That is GG. Tom did not even need any of the madness to take this home. He played one Doomguard and facelessed it. That was the Q-block element of this deck up until this point. The Giants that got cubed got dealt with fairly easily, but just minion presence and Hellfire was enough to beat the Raza Priest that didn't draw Anduin. They are so dependent on those key cards.
Tom did it the old-fashioned way, and that was actually huge. If Anduin comes down any turns earlier, that's actually just a huge problem. I mean, to be honest, Tom probably loses, but also Tom went quite slowly, especially with the clear from the Giants. So Tom is getting the game there with the win with the Warlock. Let's find out what's going to happen after the rest of the series after this. We are back and ready to go. We are here in Amsterdam playing the World Championship Hearthstone. Doesn't get better than this. Amazing place, amazing players, and an amazing crowd, of course, cheering along there. Orange versus Tom. Tom, 2-1 up off the back of that Warlock win against the Priest.
And I mentioned the conversation I had with Orange where I said, hey, buddy, you're going to get to play some Priest this tournament. That's going to feel good, isn't it? Well, so far, I'm afraid it hasn't.
He's probably playing more Priest than he wanted to in this match.
Right. He has picked up a couple of losses so far. One in a supposedly favored matchup against Tempo Rogue, although some top-level pro player would disagree with you on that, especially if they're more experienced on the Rogue side. But now, no more excuses, no more real arguments about matchups. It is a straight-up mirror that this is going to come down to.
Yeah, and whatever you say about the mirror, it is heavily reliant on Raza into Anduin. We saw what a lack of Anduin was doing against Warlock then, even with Warlock not having the best draw. But in this mirror, if someone has the ability to do the high burst damage and one player doesn't, it gets very rough. But if both players either don't have access to Anduin or both players do, along with Raza, then the game starts getting very, very intricate indeed about management of resources, managing card draw. All these small things add up to that package.
Tom is behind the game right now because we do see Orange sat on Raza, whereas Tom does not have any of the key pieces. But now, Pyro, Cleric, Circle package available in hand for Tom. That can change that card draw dynamic you were just talking about very, very quickly.
Even with the Acolyte as well, if Acolyte is just played this turn so it sits on the board, doesn't get pained, then suddenly, that's like just play these 3 cards, cycle half of your deck. Is kind of insane.
Classically, this would be considered a pretty poor play to just drop an Acolyte here, because it can get contested by a 3-3, it can get silenced, it can get Shadow Word pained, and as you mentioned, card draw very, very important. But that's one of the big issues with Hearthstone of going from a mediocre player, maybe a rank 5 player or a low-level legend player, to a top player, is learning when things that you've learned are bad are in fact correct.
You learn a set of rules and then you learn when to break them. Just to give you an update, this is match number 2 of the day. We did see Hoy lose to Doc Capone earlier on. And we've got Jason Joe versus Muzzy coming up later on. Every match is so good.
I know.
Oof. Didn't go for the Acolyte, Tom, last game. Last game? Last game, he might have played. No, last turn, so he's just going to hold on to these card draws. As he said, whenever you miss an opportunity of card draw, you give your opponent a chance to get one ahead of you, right? And you never want to do that. You need to keep it, at worst, even.
Embrace the void.
Orange is going to drop the Orkanai to try and contest this board position. Oh, Raza changes everything, and there you see Purple maybe feeling slightly worse about this matchup now that he sees the Raza matching on the opposite side from Tom, because of course, incredibly close friends with Orange, even chose to practice together again for this tournament, despite the fact that they are both in it. And that has been a hot topic amongst the players, about whether that was an advantage or not. Because practicing with someone in the same tournament, yes, you are giving away your strategy to one of your biggest competitors, but it guarantees your practice partner is as motivated as you for the cause, and you get the best possible practice out of it. It's Pyro time.
It is Pyro time. Apparently said it's purple time then. I was like, no, that's not today. Or later on.
It's Chico time.
Wow. What a weird reference to hear you make, but this is what we were talking about earlier. The combination of these 3 cards can do absolutely ridiculous things. Tom already drew the Raza this turn, and now look how many... Oh, there we go. Look, but we say, oh, we got it, and it's like, yes, 5 cards ahead of his opponent. Like, he is halfway through his deck when Orange has 20 cards left. When you draw this many cards in one turn, it isn't unfathomable that, yes, you draw the Anduin, sorry.
He drew, what, 6 cards that turn? 1 off the Power Word Shield, 5 off the Circle. So he was 40% to draw the Anduin just that turn, let alone before that as well being factored into it.
And he still effectively has 3 turns to technically draw it in time anyway, right? Exactly. So it's so many cards in, and this is when the difference might appear, and that Tom might have just took too big a step ahead of Orange in the card draw race. Orange is definitely not out of it, though. Don't get me wrong. It's just Tom made a very impactful turn there, and Orange, the onus is definitely on him to now answer this and make something happen for himself. Options are limited, though. Raza, Seems just a steady, solid option. You will then, or can use the hero power to deal 2 damage with the Elkanai on board. He's going to go for a bit of a pyro fun of his own, drawing not quite as many cards, but still helping out.
Your pyro versus the pyro she tells you not to worry about.
I mean, one's still alive, so I'm not quite sure who's who on this side.
It's a fair point. And Orange has a little bit of history when it comes to burning cards in the Priest Mirror. Again, not quite as explosive as it was that we saw in Summer Championships, but hoping against hope that that one burn might have got him something relevant.
Yeah, I mentioned at the start of the day, the Orange Surrender Finals, for me, was one of the best matches of Hearthstone I've seen in a very, very long time. If you have not seen it, you should go back and at least watch the Priest matchup. That was
Agreed.
Absolutely insane. Now the Raz is going to come down. As you mentioned earlier on, like not playing Raza when you can physically play it feels bad, but these turns make a big impact, right? Suddenly, Orange is applying a bit of pressure with this Pyro now, and Tom just has to be just as aware of a similar turn coming back from Orange. Orange still has those cards left.
I love it. I love it.
Have even more cards, friend.
Yep. Tom has exactly what he needs. That puts 2 Razas, well, puts 3 cards in his opponent's deck that aren't the Shadow Reaper Anduin or the Prophet Velen or whatever it is.
He just drew one.
Right, whatever it is Orange's hand needs from Tom's perspective, he doesn't know. He just knows there's a good chance he still needs something. Also, the 2 Razas themselves block Kazakas from being used at this point.
And they're just 5 mana 5/5. Like, that's just not a good card in this matchup, at least. Here comes Anduin. This is the card Orange did not want to see, especially on turn 8, especially after Raza already being live. We can see as well that there's plenty of cheap spells and cards for Tom to play with next turn.
And a Lyra, and still an Auctioneer to draw. Tom's list is greedy. We had the debate earlier. Tom's just playing both.
Yeah, you don't need to make a decision if you just include them both.
There you go.
Also, the flexibility of Shadow Visions is huge as well.
Yep.
Like, what do I need on this turn to get the win? Okay, because quite often this late in the game, Tom's only got 10, 11 cards on 10 on the draw left in his deck. So he probably has a very strong idea as to what spells are even left. So he can just pick what he thinks he wants. There's one less spell. Now he's just waiting for Velen to say hello. Instant snap pick there of the Dragonfire Potion. Tom doesn't want to just let slip this advantage he has gained. He doesn't want to take 8-9 damage from just minions that happen to be on the board in this matchup. He wants to clear it all off. Did have an option of Mind Blast. Didn't go for it. Definitely wanted to stay ahead in this race.
Oh, he's going to get some use out of this Pyro now.
I guess. Look at Orange's hand though. Oh, there's a Raza.
Raza number 3. We're still waiting on an Anduin.
And the hand Orange has doesn't even do anything. It doesn't even get anything done now. That combo we just saw was about as much as he had. This is looking like a very, very tough one for Orange. Tom isn't exactly lacking in resources, and when you have a large amount of resources with this setup, you can do quite miraculous things.
Yeah, he's just going off. Potion of Madness on the Acolyte. He can ping it away.
This could actually just be lethal.
Yeah,
in a very funny way, yeah. We'll just have to sit and watch this with you guys, to be honest, and see what happens.
Wait until the latest possible point to ping away that Acolyte, in case you don't need to. He's going to use the Spirit Lash anyway, so it's all irrelevant. Racking up the damage. Purify is playable as well. So much.
I've lost track of where we're up to now.
Yeah, the animations fall behind, which makes it a little bit awkward sometimes, but I think he might just get there, actually.
Second Silence as well. Still has 1 mana. Still going to take a draw from the Lyra. We're using the Silence, of course. Pint size, castable. Okay, he's not going to... Well, defending. I don't think he's got time to get there. Yeah. Okay, well mind, not going to be enough, but let's be honest. Absurd amount of damage, absurd amount of effective card draw or card generation from Tom. Orange. Don't think there's a card that gets him out here. Binding Heal with Velen.
You've just exposed your Velen at
Yeah,
that point.
it's like okay, you might not be dead next turn, but then do you ever win? And Tom isn't even scratched at this point. He's on 31.
You're hooking up the life support machine. The Iron Lung is in full effect at this point, but you are very much in assisted living at this point. Sorry, got a bit dark again.
I was gonna say I might have nothing to follow that up with because we're gonna go to a place no one wants to go to. Which death does Tom want to use? Lyra's not silent, so we'll continue to do silly things. Mind Vision, another cheap card to use out here. So much juice in the tank for Tom. Kind of another hero pal. Don't want to play it though, it doesn't refresh. I wonder. Gonna save the smite. Knew that it was extremely likely he wouldn't get there this turn anyway. If he draws Velen, smite's a lot of damage. You know, if not,
I wonder if
he plays smite next turn.
I wonder if he had Kazuka's 1-mana potion out that turn to end the game. I don't think it matters. Like, I don't think that was even the play. I just wonder if it was possible because he's got the game 100% wrapped up if he just plays normally from this position. And there you see it. Orange, the man who said he was very, very pleased to be playing Priest this tournament, has 0-3'd with Priest. 1-3 in total game score, and it's Tom who is going to progress through the winner's side of this bracket.
Yeah, both players an extreme wealth of experience, but Tom does take it over Orange. Orange not knocked out. This is a group stage, so there are lower bracket matches once they take the loss, but congratulations to Tom there. He's going to be going up against Dokpon, who we saw take the win over Hoy earlier. And then we're going to have a Hoy versus Orange match, elimination match. Absolutely huge there. So Tom, just getting the job done.
Yeah, and honestly, a complete reversal of expectations from Orange's side, because I mentioned he should be strong on Priest. Priest underperformed. Hunter was the big question mark. Hunter went on the first occasion.
Yeah, so, you know, interesting things there from Orange. But let's hear from Tom, who's with Frodan on the stage.
Thank you very much, Raven and Saddle. I'm joined by Tom, who is able to 3-0 Orange's Highlander Priest. Did you expect to beat that Priest 3 times?
I think 3-0 his Hunter is my prediction, but yeah, it's not on my prediction. Yeah.
Yeah, well, the Hunter actually won against the Warlock, which I think people were surprised. Most people said Warlock would be banned. Did you expect he would ban your Druid?
Yes, I expect he will ban my Druid or Priest, but I think Druid is the most class he didn't want to face. Yeah.
Makes sense. Now that you're playing against Dokpon, how do you feel going up against him?
I think his Druid is a little unfavorable for me, but I think it's okay for my life. It's just like 50-50. Yeah.
All right, so we think he's pretty even. One round of applause here for tom60229, our first player to challenge Dokpon and see if he can go to the quarterfinals and send it back over to Raven Saddle.